Join Gator great Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning, and you're looking live at PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to carry. Got a lot to talk about today. Hope everybody had a good bye week. We'll have Graham Hall from 24/7 Sports talking about Florida, Georgia, also the big pickup of LJ McCray over the weekend. And then we'll have Buck Belue, does radio up in the Atlanta area, won a national title back in the day with the Georgia Bulldogs, will join us as well. If you missed it last night, Eagles pretty much manhandled the Dolphins. Dolphins, a lot of people concerned because they haven't beaten any teams worth a darn. Very good offense, but we'll see. Still a long season to go. National Football League's crazy. Anything can happen in that league. Watched a lot of college football. We're waiting on Graham to join us here momentarily. But watched a lot of college football over the weekend. And let's see. Where was that question that we had here? It was on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. And it was Jim saying, got to hand it to the Noles. They countered well, getting Blunt. I guess he's referring to recruiting. I don't know who Blunt is. Somebody can fill me in on that. Like I said, I don't follow recruiting that closely, but we'll get all caught up with Graham Hall when he joins. Let's get some Titan MR text line. And we got some text here. This is from Mayaka. He says, it's Georgia week. When will you have Tony Barnhart on? Also, do you think airing it out will continue against the Dogs? I hope so. I got a text into Tony. Mr. College Football, he's a very busy man, but hopefully we can get him on. Yeah, I think we're going to have to be aggressive to play against these guys for sure. There's no question about it. They're a very good football team, probably the most complete team in America. And 31 Ember says Armando Blunt, 2025 D lineman. Well, 2025, that's a long ways away. A lot of stuff can change. Greg says, QB, how about your beloved Buffalo Bills? And my Detroit Lions got hammered. Hey, that's the NFL, man. That is the NFL. It can happen to anybody on any Sunday. There's so much parity in that league that it's hard to win games. And do we have Brent on? I mean, Brent. Do we have Graham on? He's not on yet. Okay. All right. In the meantime, Barone 71 says, Shane, what did you think about the Bears this weekend? I didn't see any of their game. I saw they won. I know they like that free agent quarterback a lot. I don't know what he did or how he played. I just saw the score that they beat the Raiders. So Andrew says, I agree. 2025 is a long ways away. Yeah. So kids can change their minds just because we got LJ McCray verbally committed doesn't mean he will sign. You got to wait till he signs. So we shall see. 31 Ember also says, with all these recruits coming in, the 2025 Florida Georgia game is going to be sick. Yeah. All right, now we're going to go to the Titan MR text line. We're joined by our good friend Graham Hall from 24/7 Sports, who's probably during the bye week was supposed to rest and relax, but a lot of stuff going on in the recruiting world. Graham, how about the Gators getting this LJ McCray?
That's a massive win, and it's back-to-back years where Florida now in the bye week has capitalized off of getting a win heading into that Georgia week. If you listen to Billy Napier at the front of the week, they were going to practice Tuesday through Thursday, but that Monday, that Friday, those are recruiting days for this coaching staff. And I've said this time and time again, this coaching staff has done a really good job at recruiting, even as we've seen the program build to where they want to get. And I think that maybe there's this belief all the time that you have to get the wins, or if you lose games down the stretch, you could lose a lot of these guys. And I've said that with NIL and where a lot of things are right now, you're going to be able to have a better chance of securing commitments like this, they're going to need to obviously keep working towards early signing day at keeping everyone in their class, because as you saw, LJ McCray is just an absolutely dominant prospect. 6'6". I had a chance to go out there a couple times to Daytona Beach in the spring and watch him practice. And not only is he massive, I mean, 6'6", quick, good shape off the edge. He is got a really good motor. He's great with his hands. But I think the most promising thing that I've witnessed is something that you can't really get from a physical buildup or how you watch their game film. This is someone who is extremely humble. He's a little soft-spoken. He's eager to learn. When I went out there and saw him practice, after they practiced, I mean, the guy is going against offensive linemen that he towers over. You can tell that a lot of times practice is not really the best way for him to improve. He spent an hour at both practices I went out there. He spent another hour after practice continuing to work with his assistant coaches. They had to tell him, hey, LJ, go rest. You know, you need to go in and prepare yourself, recover. You're playing in a different league than a lot of people you're playing with right now, but he's eager to learn, very humble guy. It was hard for me to think anything bad about him whatsoever, or a way that he couldn't fit in here. If he brings that work ethic to Florida, the Gators got him. The Gators got one. You know, that is, I think, a really impressive trait about him, is how humble and willing to work he is.
Yeah, and maybe just that's kind of how Billy Napier is, quite honestly. He's a very humble guy. Maybe that rubbed off on LJ McCray a lot. Now, is there any I thought I read somewhere where there's a potential, maybe another 5-star guy getting committing to the Gators, or did I read that wrong?
That's definitely possible. I think that when you look at who Florida is still left with, I've said this before, Florida now, the way they've built out their class with the final couple spots, they can be selective with these final spots rather than having to settle for some options. They can go for their top options. And there's 2 big 5-stars. I'm going to call them 5-stars, even if they're right outside on some of those projections. You know, we've talked about Jordan Seaton before. DJ Lagway has said that having an offensive tackle like that, a guy who is just a true number 1 offensive tackle, is massive. And, not to get a guy and then say, okay, well, who's next? Because you do want to celebrate every 5-star you get. And Florida now has 2 of them in the 247 Sports rankings, back up to the number 3 class. But that's the reality for Florida. They are still in contention for 2 5-star players. Now, I'll talk about one of them as well, Xavier Mincy, who is LJ McCray's teammate at Mainland. That one, if Florida can end up securing a commitment from him, I would be very, very impressed, because I don't think it's as much of just a Florida FSU or a Florida Miami battle as maybe LJ McCray was. This is a kid that I could see going to Georgia. I could see him going to Miami, especially. I think Miami is a real factor for Xavier Mincy. But the way the Gators have recruited and getting his teammate is just massive in my mind. A guy who, I think he's listed at safety on some sites, but I think he's a true corner at the next level. Corey Raymond thinks he's a true corner at the next level. I think there'll be a factor here in what a team wants to play him as at the next level that may impact his decision. But I think that Florida's in a really, really good position for Xavier Mincy. If they can get either one of those 2 guys, Seaton or Mincy, that is massive in my mind. That should solidify a top 3 class, maybe get you up to number 2. If you get both of them, you have a chance at obviously the number 2 class in the nation and getting up in that 300 rankings. That's just so coveted that we rarely ever see anymore. If Florida can get either one of those guys, this is one of the best classes in recent memory, at least since 2013. So if you can solidify this class, regardless if you finish 7-5, even 6-6, I know that's something that Florida fans don't want to think about. You look at what Arkansas did. That should be a game where Florida should win that game at home in a couple of weeks. If they can even finish 7-5 and they get some recruiting wins like this, where they either get Seaton or Mincy to go along with McCray, that is just absolutely massive going into next year in my mind.
Yeah, no question. Text on the Titan Mark text line says, have either of you heard how practice is going? As bad as our defense played, we need to get after it good on good as much as possible. Well, they had multiple days off. I don't know which days Billy gave them off. You probably know better than I do, Graham. And then good on good ain't going to happen during the season. You don't do that. How many days off did they get?
They got Monday was kind of a film day. So they were in the facility really Monday through Thursday. But the days off were Friday and Saturday. And that may not seem like that may seem normal, but you go back to last year, you can speak to this, Shane, as well. But last year, Florida kind of stayed in a rhythm throughout the bye week. Guys had a little bit less of a chance to go home, even if they lived in Jacksonville, Tampa area. They were expected to be back really early Sunday, and so there was a little bit less of a window to go home last week. I think that Billy Napier, and he kind of said this last week, so not to pick apart his words too much, but he said that as a coaching staff, you have to continue to reevaluate your approach, the messaging. And for this team, they've, I think, endured a lot in 7 games, right? They've played some tough opponents. They've bounced back. They've had to work on capitalizing on momentum, especially a guy like Graham Mertz and that offensive line. They are obviously banged up. You want to get them healthy for the final 5 games of the season here. So Florida made sure to have a little bit more time off toward the end of the week to get guys to see their family, recover mentally for the final stretch. But there is a lot to staying in a rhythm and making sure that you continue to practice, continue to build momentum. And as Billy Napier said, when you don't have an opponent, it's not that you're not working on anything. You get to work on yourselves without feeling like we need to balance game planning for the opponent. So Florida had a chance to clean up a lot of stuff in those 3 days. And I'm interested to see how it pays off, because defensively, they're confident in how they are. They just have a few things to clean up. And I'm interested to see how much it benefits them.
On YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, Chris asked, what recruits will be at the Florida-Georgia game? Georgia got the chance to host recruits last year. I can't remember how that works. I think it's dumb, quite honestly. If I was being recruited, I would not want to go to a neutral site game. Can you kind of fill us in? Because I know they changed the rules on that, Graham. Get us updated on how that works.
Yeah. First, for the recruits, I don't really have too much info. That list is still being filled out of who's going to be there. I've heard LJ McCray is planning on being there. But the reason why it may not be this prolific recruiting weekend, it really wasn't a prolific recruiting weekend for Georgia last year, because the big thing here is the coaches, even though they can have recruits there, they still can't interact with them. So you can have recruits on site and they can go to the game, but it really isn't a chance to see their families too much, actually talk to them about it. Florida gets on that bus, goes up there the day of, comes back, they're up there in the morning, and then they come back right after the game. And it really isn't a chance. If you watch a home game, Florida is out there on the field for an hour after the game. Their coaches leave the locker room and talk to recruits afterwards. Recruits they talk to immediately after the game. That's not going to happen, to my knowledge, at Georgia. So I wouldn't expect it to be too prolific of a recruiting weekend, but the Gators will still have, guys there, especially recruits who are considering Georgia as well, a chance to see both programs, see how they interact, see the belief of the players in a game like this. And for Florida, a lot of people, think they're a double-digit underdog. Seeing a fight against Georgia, seeing this team contend is something that I think a lot of recruits are obviously interested in getting a firsthand experience of, and a chance to go to this historic matchup in a sense in Georgia. I think a lot will take up on that opportunity, but it's not going to be, in my opinion, a massive weekend. But if you want the full list, Blake Alderman at 247 is updating it every day as he hears names who are joining. He's already got a bunch up on 247 right now. So check that out. If you're not a subscriber, $1 for a month, you can get all that info right now.
Good stuff. Yeah, underdog. Gators are a 13-point underdog. Somebody last week on my show said we're like 24. No, I think it started at 14.5. I think it's at 13 now. Graham, this is a text on the Titan Mark text line from George in New Orleans. He says, Graham, what or who has been your biggest surprise for the Gators after 7 games?
Well, I know a lot of people are going to say Graham Mertz, but, Shane, they've been listening to you. They've listened to me a little bit less, obviously. I mean, we're not that surprised, right? People are, I think, seeing that this guy has the ability to be explosive downfield. I think that is absolutely a positive that many people were not expecting. He's extremely tough, maybe tougher than I thought that he was heading into this season. Mentally tough, not surprised, because for him to endure what he did at Wisconsin, come here, work as hard as he did, embrace the expectations, not be named the starting quarterback until midway through August, that never really affected his preparation or his mental approach in any way. I'm not as surprised as I think some people are, but I will say Eugene Wilson. I know that you were very high on the freshman, but for a guy like Eugene Wilson to come here middle of the year, a little bit of a smaller guy, to make an impact the way that he did, and just be this dynamic guy in space and bounce back from that injury as well. I am thoroughly impressed with Eugene Wilson. I thought it would take him a little bit more time to be where he's at, but I'm already in the mindset that this is a guy who deserves double-digit touches when he goes out there. He is that dynamic. And to have a weapon like that as a freshman, it's really back-to-back years where the Gators have got a high-impact freshman who comes here in the middle of the year, and within 4 months of being on campus, they're already a critical part of the rotation. Last year, it was Trevor Etienne. This year, you have Eugene Wilson. Florida continues to evaluate well underclassmen who are able to play. And I asked Billy Napier a couple of weeks ago, is there something that you look for to determine whether a freshman is going to be able to handle everything that comes with year one and not be overwhelmed and be able to see the field? And he says it's really an intangible evaluation process. You have to see guys who are, again, I mentioned humility, able to come in, work, have nothing promised to them, and handle the film load and balance of everything, work-life balance, the school load balance. I mean, that is a lot to put on a freshman's plate. And so to see this coaching staff continue to find guys who are able to do that, compete and play over veterans, that is just, it's more impressive to me than I think a lot of people out there, because you follow recruiting rankings and you think, oh man, that player is going to be a high impact player. They got to play right away, but it's not that easy. Just finding guys who are able to do that is really impressive in my mind.
Yeah, well, you talk about their evaluation process. I think their player evaluation has been outstanding, because last year he was responsible for the best players on the team, brought in a lot of good players. Now, there's one, some people may argue that we haven't done a great job evaluating the big guys, so to speak. I can see that, but from a skill standpoint, I think they've done a phenomenal job and will continue doing that for sure. Andy has a question here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law. How instrumental is DJ Lagway on recruiting?
Massive. It's really him and Miles Graham leading the charge for this class on both sides of the ball. You see DJ Lagway out there, tweeting about getting recruits in here. He's talking behind the scenes. He has a group text going with these guys, just making sure that bond is strong. And as a fan, that makes it, that's a huge bonus in my mind, because it makes it harder for these guys to want to look elsewhere. I mean, you go back to, this is how things work. Group texts between prospects aren't uncommon, but if you don't have a strong bond, a guy has no problem leaving and hopping out of that group text and going somewhere else. Building those bonds really, really quickly, especially if you're DJ Lagway, is massive, because when you're a quarterback, you are kind of the face of the offense, right? Fair or not. And guys need to know who they're coming to play for. And when you are that solid base, and there's a coaching staff here, and they're seeing back-to-back years, a young or a quarterback who kind of been written off somewhere else come in and have success here. And you mentioned, the big guys up front, seeing him evaluate and talk to those top offensive linemen and talk to the coaching staff about him, and then, engage guys like Jordan Seaton, say he's the top target we have left. That is massive. The last thing you want is a quarterback commit who's okay being quiet and is just working on themselves. I mean, when they get in here and they are totally locked in, that is an encouraging sign in my mind. Anyone thinking that, DJ Lagway is going to hop out of the class can look at the work he's doing behind the scenes on the recruiting trail and see that this is a guy who's already thinking about his future at UF, who's going to protect him. And that really has to make you feel good about what you have. I mean, not to say that, Jaden Rashada wasn't doing that last year, but this was a guy that at this point last year was still committed to another program, right? So he wasn't doing that as much with Florida's prospects. He may have been talking to some guys on Florida's radar, but in terms of keeping a class together, thinking of the future, DJ Lagway is giving you something that every fan, every coaching staff wants, where he is not content being locked in himself and working on his own game. He's trying to make sure that when he gets here, he has talent around him that's going to put him in a position for success. And that is a very, very encouraging sign, no matter who you are.
Yep. We're speaking with Graham Hall here on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Radware is a family-led business that prides itself in excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. There was a message here about the injury report. Obviously, some guys are banged up. The report comes out on Wednesday, correct, with the depth chart and all that?
Yep.
But Graham, having covered the team and you're close to them, I would probably say Caleb Douglas is definitely out. I don't know if he's out for the year or not, but I feel like we'll have everybody ready to roll in this game.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the big one is probably Kingsley, and I'm not going to diminish his impact, because maybe this is a word that's a little bit of a buzzword now, and in society, but that is a true alpha. You know, when you have that guy in the offensive line room playing with an edge, the way he talks, engages his teammates, the way he just is a mauler out there on the field, you just want his presence because it makes everyone play a little bit tougher. But the way Jake Slaughter has played since the Utah game, especially as a run blocker, I think, and he's improving as a leader behind the scenes. I think that if Kingsley is somehow unable to go, and that high ankle sprain can be so tricky, if he's somehow unable to go, they feel a lot better than they did 6 weeks ago with Jake Slaughter there. So from an injury perspective, I think that, yeah, Caleb Douglas, I hope that he can return at some point this year. That's just it's a lengthy injury for sure. And you don't want to rush him back for 1-2 games maybe and risk him potentially re-injuring something. I would be surprised if we saw him again this year. Honestly, I don't know. Let me say this. I don't know, just given the extent of that injury, what Florida has at wideout right now, how you're seeing guys like Ricky Pearsall, Eugene Wilson, like I mentioned, Arliss Boardingham be factors in the passing game, Hayden Hansen be a factor in the passing game. I don't know if risking further injury to Douglas is worth it for this Florida staff. You know, Florida also, this is the guy who wasn't on the injury report prior to last week. You know, Devin Moore, he should be fully healthy, ready to go. This is absolutely a massive bye week for you because it's not just you getting healthy, it's Georgia getting healthy. It's right. Arkansas that's going to get healthy next week before playing and gets to work with a new offensive coordinator. So this is absolutely a situation where getting healthy was a priority. And as you mentioned, there's no good on good going on right now. They're resting those guys who they know are key contributors. They're doing minimal action. They're staying in shape. They're getting recovery. This is a chance to maybe build a little bit more depth along the second unit, get guys more reps, they put some stuff on film throughout the season. And those guys, I think, got more workload during the bye week. That for the main starters, it was about resting up. And I think Florida, from what I've heard, has done a really good job of that.
Yeah, you brought up Ricky Pearsall. Graham, how many years you been covering the Gators?
This is my 9th season. I'm blessed.
Oh, you're still a youngster. But I was trying to think, and I brought this up last week or a couple weeks ago on my show. Ricky Pearsall is one of the best receivers we've ever had at this school. You know, and we've had some good ones, especially in the Spur era. And I know we had the Wes Chandlers and the Carlos Alvarez's and Collinsworth way back in the day. But I'm going from the time that I got here. Man, I mean, he's working his way, if he's not already in the top 10. He's a guy I think is going to play a lot and a long time on Sundays.
Yeah, I think so too. He is extremely durable. He is a tough physical guy. You can use him in a variety of ways. You can line him up in the slot. You can line him up in the backfield. He's obviously a vertical, passing threat. You've seen him, I think, improve it with his tracking downfield. I think that probably the biggest one that I see go unmentioned, and some people were a little bit critical, fair or not, of the re-edition of Billy Gonzalez. But what Billy Gonzalez is extremely good at is footwork within the first 5 yards, getting an explosive step and working with turning your hips through your plant and acceleration. I mean, Ricky's ability to get by his defender, I think, has improved within the last year. And if he keeps doing that, I agree. He's going to play, double-digit seasons potentially in the NFL if he keeps doing that. And he's a threat on special teams. I mean, the guy can be used in a variety of ways, and he's extremely intelligent, works hard. He is a huge addition. You mentioned the guys that Billy Napier added who came in last year and made an impact. Montrell Johnson, Osiris Torrance. I think Ricky Pearsall is one of the most maybe underrated ones that Florida added. And that sounds funny because he's Florida's leading wide receiver for back-to-back years. But I think that this guy, if he was, on any other team, he would, I think, maybe get a little bit more acclaim than he gets. And maybe that's Florida's lack of explosion. Maybe it's the fact that they have, passed the ball to other guys and looked to get other guys involved at times. That could absolutely be a factor. But if you put him on Alabama or Georgia, people are talking about him as a future, first or second round NFL pick in my mind. It's kind of wild to me that he's still projected as just a 4th round pick next year. I hope Florida fans appreciate him because I think he's going to outlive and outplay those projections and have a really, really good NFL career. And that's another successful evaluation by Billy Napier going back to his time at Arizona. He's known about that guy for 6 years. And that is one of those, I hate to use the word intangibles again, but when you're hiring a guy like that who is kept up with players, not just in Louisiana, or not just in the SEC, but knows talent in the Pac-4, Pac-12, you absolutely, that is a huge boost for you. And Florida has maximized Billy Napier's evaluation by getting a guy like Ricky Pearsall.
All right, we got a couple here before we get you out of here on the Titan More text line. This is Bob up in Memphis, Tennessee. He says, Graham, in your opinion, what do the Gators need to do against Georgia to pull off the big upset?
Well, I do think they're going to need to be explosive in the passing game. I hate to say that this could be a game where Florida's going to have to score 24, 30 plus points and able to contend. But I do think that this Georgia offense, especially on the line of scrimmage, especially what they have in the backfield, I think Carson Beck is a better quarterback than I think many people realize right now. He's still coming into his own, but he is absolutely capable of going out there and throwing for 300 yards and an accurate guy. But he is a young quarterback. If they can win the battle at the line of scrimmage, be able to score 3-4 touchdowns, get a critical turnover potentially of Carson Beck, I maybe think that this is, maybe I sound crazy here because, two-time defending national champions, but I do think this is going to be a one-score game, one way or the other. I think that Florida, the way that they've improved at blocking along the line of scrimmage, I think that Florida's going to run the ball better than we've seen at times. I think that if they can establish the run and Graham Mertz can, find his open receivers downfield, and they keep calling plays the way that they did the last couple of weeks, I think that Florida's going to be better than people think in this game. I don't, not to harp on the Brock Bowers injury, but that does limit how dynamic potentially Georgia's offense can be. I know that they've recruited so well that to quote Kirby Smart, they have contingency plans at every position. You can do that when you've recruited the way that they have, but I still think with the inexperience they have at quarterback, the inexperience they may have at tight end, if Florida can just avoid giving up any big plays and stop this Georgia rushing attack at the line of scrimmage, this could be a really, really interesting game heading into the fourth quarter. And even if you don't win, I'm not going to say there's any moral victories here. If you can contend with the two-time national champions and make this a close game in the fourth quarter, and who knows, maybe eke out a victory the way you just did at South Carolina, rallied down the stretch, showed some urgency in the last 5 minutes. This is a winnable game for Florida in my mind. I could see it going, obviously, the other direction where Florida loses this double-digit game where we see just how much more talent Georgia has across their entire team, and it shows you where you need to go. But I think it's going to be a lot closer game than people expect. You get in a rivalry game like this, it's hard to predict in my mind, especially for a team like Florida that has some momentum. Getting that win at South Carolina was huge for the belief, the momentum going into this week. And they've been game planning. I know maybe people saw Billy Napier's comments from last week saying that we're focused on ourselves. They've been game planning for Georgia all year long. This is a massive game. This coaching staff knows it. This team knows it. And I would be surprised if Florida does not make it competitive in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. All right. Last thing, real quick. Alan asked, why does it appear a Boardingham type receiver shows up later in the season? Did his talent not show up in practice? They've been high on him since last year. They redshirted him. I want to say he got some playing time in the bowl game, and he just had to work his, sometimes when guys are young, coaches sometimes are hesitant to put them in the game because, maybe he runs great routes, but if he's got a protection on a certain play and he ain't done it in practice, you're going to get your quarterback killed. So he's very talented. They've always thought he was talented, right, Graham?
Yeah, absolutely. They've used that word potential. And I think maybe people can misunderstand when a coach says potential and think that they're going to come in and play right away. They're referring to how high they are on Arliss after he's learned the intricacies of the position. He's comfortable in a variety of roles. He's learned the playbook. He's gotten more physically capable. And like you said, that injury last season to his shoulder really set him back a good bit last year in capitalizing on his potential early. But you're seeing why this coaching staff was so high on him. And let's not forget also, this is a guy that a lot of other programs missed. He was not an early signee for Billy Napier's staff. It was a guy that they identified in January from across the country, more than 2,000 miles away. And he was listed as an athlete on 247 Sports. He was very new to the tight end position. That is a great evaluation in my mind because you have a guy who's been playing the position less than 3 years and now is able to make an impact in the passing game. He's a much improved blocker as well. And how much Florida uses 12 personnel. It's a tall task for sure. And to see this second-year guy, new to the position, already able to do pretty much everything that's asked of him, that's massive in my mind. It speaks well to the future. And I do think that this coaching staff is pretty elated that they now have a true pass-catching threat at tight end, which is something that they really lacked last year. Now, this coaching staff was really high on what Keon Zipper could have done coming back for year two. Unfortunately, he suffered that injury, and they've been really looking for someone to step up in that role that they were hoping Keon would play. And to see Arliss right now be able to be a downfield threat, block it well, I'm really impressed with him. But when they use the word potential like that, they're talking about what a guy could become in 2-3 years, and you are seeing that with Arliss Boardingham.
Yeah. Graham, good stuff as always, buddy. We're going to get to Buck Belue. Tell everybody how they can follow you on Twitter and read all your stuff.
At Twitter at Graham Hall. Really appreciate everyone out there. Love Florida fans, love engaging. Hit me up on swamp247.com. Hit me up on Twitter. You got a question I didn't answer, let me know. Hoping to be back pretty soon. If you're looking to subscribe to Swamp 247, we got 30% off right now, an annual membership. After the first year, you can get a Paramount Plus with that. So really, that's an $84 deal right there. I know a lot of you guys watch Paramount Plus. You can watch those CBS games live in the app as well. And if you just want to try us out 1 month for just $1 right now, you can get basketball coverage, football coverage, recruiting coverage heading into early signing day. Really good deal. Got to be back soon, Shane. It's going to be an exciting one this weekend. I'll see you out there.
All right. This is Graham Hall. Appreciate it, buddy. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll be joined by former Georgia. I was almost calling him a Gator quarterback. Georgia quarterback Buck Belue. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Thursday, November the 16th, come celebrate the release of our Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, Lugo's Risky Rum. This exclusive release features a special spread of our farm-to-table food, rum cocktails, raffles, and a meet and greet with me. Each ticket includes a bottle of Spurrier's Single Barrel Select Risky Rum. And I'll sign the bottle if you'd like. So get your ticket before they sell out at spurriers.com.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Silverback Concrete's a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it, we stand by it. Going back to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by former Gator quarterback, Gator. I did it again. He wanted to be a Gator. Just kidding. Buck Belue, former Georgia quarterback. How you doing, Buck?
Man, we're doing good, Shane. I'm just trying to figure out why the Falcons aren't throwing that ball to Kyle Pitts any more than they are.
Well, I agree with you. He's a guy that his catch radius is ridiculous. And as much as they want to run the football, you think you would feed the tight end quite a bit. But they found a way to win yesterday in Tampa. So I think they're leading the NFC South right now. But yeah, he's a hell of a player and they need to get him the ball more. But let's talk about your Georgia Bulldogs trying to do something that hasn't been done since the 50s when the Minnesota Golden Gophers won 3 in a row. As of right now, you watch this team closely. Are they anywhere near the last 2 national championship teams that Georgia's had?
You know, there's been a step back. There's no question about that. I have not had them in my power rankings #1 yet this season. I've had them 3 most of the year. I've moved them up to 2. I'm penalizing Michigan because they hadn't played anybody. But there's been a little bit of a step back. I think it's wide open. I think there are 8 to 10 teams out there with a shot at the national title. But and Georgia's one of them. I think they've got to get better here the second half of the season, and that might be tough without Brock Bowers out on the field.
Yeah. Let's talk about the quarterback, your position. Obviously, I've been on your show the last several years, and, Kirby signed a bunch of 5-star quarterbacks, but none of them played really. It went to a little walk-on named Stetson Bennett, who was a phenomenal player. Now he has Carson Beck from Jacksonville, who's a 5-star. How would you say he's played so far this year?
Well, I'm just so impressed with Carson Beck. #1 is patience. He went to work during these 3 years of watching where most of these other quarterbacks would have transferred out of there. So, his patience and loyalty is commendable. And I tell you what I love about him. He's got the view of the entire field back in the pocket, can make all the throws, but he's not hesitant to check the ball down. He just refuses to put the ball in harm's way. He's not going to force it into tight spots. He's going to check that thing down if nobody's open. And I've been really impressed with that and really happy for him, too. Anybody that waits 3 years for an opportunity to play and is that loyal to the program, you want to see him do well. And he's been a little more mobile than I expected also. When he has to, he can extend plays, throw it on the run, maybe pick up a critical 3rd down when you need it with his legs. So all in all, he's been fantastic. And, you look at the total QBR stat, we're talking about one of the top 15 rated quarterbacks in college football. So it's been impressive.
Yeah, you mentioned Brock Bowers. I mean, he's clearly one of the better players in America. You've watched a lot of football in your time, but where does he stand as one of the best players you've ever seen?
Well, I just get so frustrated with hearing about, the quarterbacks and how many yards they threw for. Well, let me tell you, growing up in Valdosta playing high school ball, they didn't care about the yards. They cared about being a football player. And I tell you what, I think Brock Bowers, as I've looked across college football, we hear a lot about Caleb Williams and Michael Penix and all these quarterbacks with all these yards. But I just think Brock Bowers, for the injury, was the best football player in college football. And he's a guy that can do it all. I tell you, I loved Mike Bobo's done a great job, the offensive coordinator, of moving him around. There was a time in that Auburn game where things hung in the balance. There was a critical 3rd down and 1. They had him at the fullback position in a 1-back set, handed him the football off tackle, and he picked up 3 yards in the 1st down. I mean, how many tight ends are you going to see do that? And line up at all these different wide receiver positions also. I mean, the only thing I haven't seen him do is throw the football.
Well, he probably can do that, no question. All right, Buck, for all the Gator people listening to our podcast and watching, obviously they've watched Georgia a lot, but when they see the Georgia defense Saturday in Jacksonville, have they taken a step back from where they were the last 2 years defensively?
It's a little crazy. They're doing great defending the run. I think the strength of the defense is the secondary. Got a lot of good players in the secondary. They're coached up and playing well. The only thing they aren't doing is forcing turnovers. They're great on 3rd down, but sacking the quarterback, forcing turnovers, they're at the other end of the spectrum. So it really is sort of an odd mix. Looking at them and what they're doing defensively. Linebackers really strong. I tell you, where Auburn got after them, Shane, was on the edge. Hugh Freeze did a great job of game planning. They were able to get the quarterback on the edge, running back on the edge. They didn't contain. And I'm sure Muschamp and Schumann and Kirby have worked overtime on trying to get that corrected here lately. Really looked good against Kentucky. and their power running game. But I've been impressed watching this Gator offense. Just got through watching the South Carolina game. I mean, Mertz is playing at a high level. The offensive line looks physical. You know, Pearsall's a dangerous man at the receiver spot. You got two quality running backs. This is going to be the biggest challenge for this Georgia defense.
All right, before we get you out of here, Buck, we've had a bunch of people on Facebook and YouTube send all these comments. They cringed when they heard that Buck Belue was coming on my show for everything you did against the Gators. We got to talk about Run, Lindsey, Run. Where would you rank that play in Georgia football history? Is that the #1 play of all time?
Well, it's, you know, I really sort of hesitate to crown myself, you know, being involved in the biggest play, but it was huge. And, you know, I just feel so good that Lindsey Scott was involved in that. We didn't get him the football enough. He was a big play player. In that moment, you know, I knew the ball had to go to Lindsey, and that was the only way we were going to come away with a comeback victory that day. It's, you know, when you look around at the history of Georgia football, it's certainly, you know, will be talked about when people bring up the bigger plays. But I don't want to sit here and crown myself king for being a part of that. But I tell you what, it was exciting. And, you know, Lindsey and I went back to high school. We played against each other in high school, and the friendship started there. And, you know, the one thing that stands out to me is, you know, I pointed at Lindsey because the Gators were in an 8-man drop zone. There was a linebacker between us, and I pointed at him hoping he would stop, and the linebacker would keep drifting, and that would open up a tunnel to get him the football. And that's exactly what he did. Not once had we ever talked about, if I ever point at you, I need you to stop. So, look, there was some great chemistry, close relationship with Scotty, and it certainly paid off that day.
Yes, indeed. Also, before we get you out here, you've written a book. If we do have some Georgia people that watch this show, let them know how they can purchase that book.
Well, it's called Inside the Hedges, and they can find that. They can actually buy that. It'll be shipped to them at InsideTheHedges.com. And, you know, there's a big chapter on that Georgia-Florida game in 1980 and sort of the backstory from the quarterback's view, and also have, you know, a big chapter or two on Valdosta High football and what made Valdosta High so successful. It was the coaching, Shane. A great coaching there at the high school level. And I was so blessed to have gone through that program and gotten coached up the way I got coached up there at Valdosta High. And I was totally prepared going into college to be able to perform at a high level there. So, yeah, it was a passion that was about 3 decades in the works. So I'm really proud of it. For those out there interested, they can find it at InsideTheHedges.com.
All right, we got one text that just came through from George on the Titan MR text line. He wants to know what your relationship is like with Kirby Smart, and just talk about the job that he's done with the Dogs.
Well, I've known Kirby for a long time. His dad was a very successful high school coach in South Georgia. And, gosh, we go all the way back to their days in Bainbridge. And, you know, as a player, I got to know him a little bit. But he's obviously doing a great job, and really proud of the fact that he came back home and took the reins to the program. And I tell you, I just don't think there's anybody working any harder than Kirby Smart. He is dedicated on the recruiting trail of convincing these young men to come play at Georgia. He's done a great job here lately. He's gotten so much better handling the media here over the last couple of years, and he's done a great job. You know, I was probably a little closer with Kirby before he got that head job, because now, you know how, Shane, you deal with it. You know, you're a member of the media. There's sort of a hands-off thing going on with the head coaches most of the time.
Yeah, very true. But appreciate your time, my man. Let everybody know how they can listen to you while they're in Atlanta.
We're at 680 The Fan, and I'm on 10 to 11. We've got the Fan app that you can find and listen anywhere, anytime. So 23rd year, it just doesn't seem like working most days, Shane.
Very, very true. Buck Belue, we appreciate you joining the program, my man.
Hey, thanks, man. Always good to be with you.
Yep, that's Buck Belue, former Georgia quarterback, joining our program, Talk a Little Dogs. We're going to take a quick timeout. Got a bunch of Facebook Lives, YouTubes, and texts to get back to here before we close out this Monday edition. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Thursday, November the 16th, come celebrate the release of our Spurrier's Gridiron Grill Lugo's Risky Rum. This exclusive release features a special spread of our farm-to-table food, rum cocktails, raffles, and a meet and greet with me. Each ticket includes a bottle of Spurrier's Single Barrel Select Risky Rum. And I'll sign the bottle if you'd like. So get your ticket before they sell out at spurriers.com.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. I want to thank Graham Hall and Buck Belue for joining our program. We got people here talking about a 12:30 kickoff with Arkansas. I have not seen that. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. My guess would be either a 12 o'clock kick or 7 o'clock would be my choice. I want to say LSU Alabama would be the 3:30 game that day. So there you have that. Real quick, I just want to jump in. You know, I talk about on my program, we'll discuss this more with JC because he and I kind of get into it about this. But as I've spoken to you, is I think, you know, there are great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches that just don't fall off trees. And that's why, you know, if you look at Alabama, they've had 2 or 3 coaches that have won a bunch of games. You look at Georgia, it's been Vince Dooley. Mark Richt had a good little run. Now it's Kirby Smart. At Florida, it was Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer. To my point, since Coach Spurrier left South Carolina, the Gamecocks are 9-23 in SEC road games. 4 of those wins have come against Vanderbilt. The point I'm trying to make is he won at South Carolina. I don't know if anybody will ever win at South Carolina again. Some people are Hall of Fame coaches, and that is reflected in how they perform at each school. So we'll see. Twan says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Shane said that the team should have enough confidence to go give ourselves a chance to pull off the upset. Yeah, absolutely. We should have enough confidence to go get it done. Brent says it could be a 4 p.m. on SEC. That's right. I forgot about the SEC network. Yeah. Andy says, I think we have an answer to why Graham Mertz would ever go to Wisconsin for Miss Wisconsin. He didn't know who I'm sure he didn't know who Miss Wisconsin was before he went there. But who knows? This Day in Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. This day in 2022, the Major League Baseball American League Championship Series, the Astros defeat the Yankees, sweeping them to advance to their 4th World Series in 6 years. They're going tonight. If you missed it last night, Game 7 will be tonight. Astros, Rangers. It's amazing that the Astros have been in 7 straight American League Championship Series and trying to get to their 5th World Series in the last 7 years. That's crazy. And then Phillies are all set, ready to roll. So that's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Also, good shout out, congratulations to Ben Shelton winning his first tournament. That's awesome. And I don't know, we had some text here on the Titan Mar text line about Duke, Florida State. Duke played a heck of a game, man. They got a good football team, backup quarterback. You know, they were ahead 20-17 late in the third, had it first and goal from like the 6-yard line. 3 straight run plays for nothing. They go for it on 4th down and then decide to throw the football. At least let that kid get out on the run or do something, or at least throw it on 2nd down, or just kick the field goal. Tim said, did the Michigan spotter leave the Astros? I want to touch on that. Do we have time for that? Yeah, we got a few minutes. I don't understand the sign stealing thing. I haven't followed it closely, but everybody in America steals signs in every sport. I guess if you go to a practice, sneak in a practice and videotape. But here's what the NCAA needs to do. College football teams, coaches and players waste so much time learning signals with all those people with the holding the signs up, doing all, they got 3 guys over there doing all these hand signals. That's a waste of time. Just put the damn headsets in the quarterback's helmet, like the NFL, and put it in the Mike linebacker, and it's solved. So there you have it. But stealing signs is something that's done in high school, college, the NFL. So I'll never forget. I stole Coach Spurrier's signs. I wasn't coaching or anything, but when his first game back in the swamp, that was the game. Was his first game back was the one we blocked the field goal and won the national title? Was it 06? Would that have been right? Maybe not. Anyway, the first time he came back to the swamp, I'm sitting in a buddy's skybox. So I can see this perfectly to the South Carolina sideline. He had the same exact signals. I was calling every play, and these people were like, how did you know that was coming? I'd call toss sweep left. Here comes 4 vertical. Here comes corner hitch. And, so anyway, I don't understand the big deal about sign stealing. It happens. It's your fault. Cover it up. And he says, how much trouble's Dabo in? Can't remember the last time they lost. Yeah. I don't know if you saw that. I went to bed and saw the end of it. Cade Klubnik had an easy touchdown there. I guess it would have tied the game up in overtime. Maybe they'd had to still convert the 2-point play, but he pulled it for some reason, trying to make a play. Just hand it off, son. So yeah, but I went to bed. They were up 17-7. So 31 Ember says Duke can't move the ball, not without Riley Leonard. And he was playing on one leg. But I was very impressed with Duke. Florida State is still not great, in my opinion. Jordan Travis reminds me a lot of Tim Tebow. Just has that natural leadership ability, hell of a college football player, not a great thrower, but just makes plays. I don't know if he'll play in the National Football League, and it doesn't matter because he's not an NFL type guy, but he's a heck of a college quarterback. He runs the ball well, throws the ball okay, but makes plays, and his team believes in him. So there you have that. We got a bunch of people trying to get lined up. Barnhart, Stinchcomb, a bunch of Georgia people to get on the program this week. We'll see if it all transpires, but should be a good weekend over there in Jacksonville. The weather's going to be great. I'll be participating in Danny Werfel's Desire Cup on Friday. It's a heck of an event, Florida versus Georgia. They raise a lot of money for Desire Street Ministries. So if you've ever been to it, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you may want to check it out. The Arizona. I thought the Phillies have already clinched. My bad. It's at 5:00. I guess they can clinch today. I'm kind of out of it. I was kind of out of it. with no game this week. I didn't follow sports like I normally do. That's not good when you have a sports talk show, right? All right, so let's see. You're right. 5 o'clock, Phillies, Diamondbacks. Phillies lead 3-2. They could clinch it today. And then tonight, game 7, boy, right there in Houston. Astros, Rangers. That'll be something. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Again, thanks to Buck Belue and our man, Graham Hall, for joining us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Have a great day, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.